So the question is, what language do you speak during your inner spouse talk? The language of despair or the language of hope? Do you speak the language of despair or the language of hope? And we all get to choose how we will internally narrate the story of our marriage. We get to make that choice. Like, how am I going to internally narrate what's going on? And I'm going to choose the language of despair, or am I going to choose, because it is a choice, the language of hope? So let me give you an example. If your husband trips up and starts looking at pornography again, and he said he wasn't going to do it anymore, and you find out, or he admits it, or whatever, and you can decide, well, yes, this is hurtful, and I'm not minimizing that at all, so please don't misunderstand it. That would be hurtful to your heart for sure. But in that moment, or in even the hours and the days to come, we can choose to catastrophize this event in our heads. And again, as you're internally narrating what has happened, you get to choose. And sometimes we choose to internally catastrophize this event. You can choose the language of despair. And this is a choice in that painful moment. Now, I'm not saying that, again, please do not misunderstand. I'm not saying that this should just go, unaddressed and like, oh, well, boys will be boys or whatever. No, I'm not saying that at all. You're going to need to deal with the issue. But again, is it going to be the internal narrative, the language of hope, or the language of despair? So if it's the language of despair, it will sound something like this. He doesn't really love me. I married the wrong person, and now I'm stuck in a hopeless marriage. I will never be able to trust him again. I will never get over this. He is a complete loser. He's a complete jerk. I do not respect him. I will never respect him. I will never get over this. That is the language of despair. And can you about imagine how your marriage is going to go after that? And if this is your internal narrative. Now you can choose that narrative, but not only is your marriage going to be going slowly into the dumper, but you are not going to be feeling too much joy either or any hope. But what if you choose a different internal narrative using the language of hope? You can say something like, this really hurts. This really hurts. But I know God is going to teach me something through this that's going to be valuable to me, that maybe will teach me to be more Christ-like. So God's going to bring something good out of this. There's hope, one bit of hopeful language, right? Or how about, I know God is going to show me how to handle this situation. I trust that He's going to show me how to handle this situation. Does that sound like the language of despair or hope? It sounds hopeful. You're doing this internal dialogue, but in a sense you're kind of coaching your soul and saying, I'm not going to be in the pit of despair here. I'm not going to willingly place myself in the pit of despair. I'm going to choose hope because we have a God of hope. We have a God of immense power that can do anything. In fact, in Ezekiel 36 in the Bible, God says He can change a person's heart. He can change the hard heart into a soft heart. So if God can do that, He can do anything. He can change my husband. He can change me. He can change our marriage. He can do miracles. He can get rid of birds in the building. He can do anything, right? So you're internally narrating using the language of hope. Like, I wonder what God is going to teach me. I wonder what good He is going to bring out of this. You might say something like, my husband isn't perfect, but I'm not a perfect woman either, so I'm actually going to give him the same kind of grace that I want to receive when I mess up. Because here's a little secret. Our husbands are not the only ones that mess up. We only choose to focus on their failures, right? Because I really like to look at my stuff. It doesn't look that bad, does it? I just try not to look at it at all. But, we all fail, maybe not in the same exact way. And certainly some of the choices that our guys make are more painful choices than others, but we all mess up, right? And I want people to forgive me. I need people to forgive me. I want them to treat me with grace. And so I can do the internal narrative that says, you know what, he's not perfect, but I'm not perfect either. And so I'm going to extend the same grace that I want him to give me when I mess up. I'm going to extend the same grace that God has given me when I messed up big time, right? Another thing you could say is you're using this language of hope, and this is huge. I'm sure He didn't intend to hurt me. Well, just write down that sentence if you don't write anything else down. I don't think he, or I'm sure he didn't intend to hurt me. Now, because again, I really seriously doubt that any of your husbands, those of you who are married in the room, I seriously doubt that any of your husbands set out to say, I wonder how I can hurt her. They don't. They have personal problems, and those personal problems lead them to behavior that ends up being hurtful. But none of them intend to hurt you. It's like, oh, I just can't wait to make her life miserable today. What ideas do I have? No, it's not like that. And so if you use that language of hope and said, I know he didn't intend to hurt me. I bet there's a reason why he acted that way. Maybe he's trying to medicate some internal pain, some emotional wounds that he's been carrying for a while, and he made a bad choice, but he's not a bad person. And I'm going to pray for God to work in his heart and to heal his heart. And I'm going to come alongside of him and see how I can encourage him to seek the help that he needs. See how that's a whole different language than that first example of, he's a total jerk, I'll never get out of this, I'll never trust him again, it's hopeless, right? You can choose.